This is a video about opportunity sizing in Motif. We're working with the Motiflix dataset, which includes the kind of events you'd see with the video streaming service. If you've watched the video on experiment analysis, you know that we conducted an experiment to launch a top movies page. That's based on this opportunity sizing evaluation that we're going to do. That experiment takes place in our data starting on May 1st. So actually for opportunity sizing, we're going to look before May 1st. Now this is kind of a quirk of having an example data set that you may not face in your work, but I thought it would be valuable to see this filtering operation. So what we're looking to find is an event that is on that horizon. So I'm going to match on any event. I'm going to call that end event. The open parentheses or empty parentheses means match any event. And I'm going to add an if so it doesn't just grab any event. I need that end event timestamp to be less than the time period I'm looking for, 224.05.01. And I need but that's going to, just pick the very first event in the sequence, which is less than that. So I need to add another clause here, and I'm going to say that suffix, so that's the first thing after my match, suffix 0 of timestamp needs to be greater than or equal to 2024.05.01. So now I'm requiring that the next event after my matched event be greater than or equal to 5.1. So now I'm really looking for that barrier between those times. Now if all of the events happen before 5.01, that suffix 0 is going to be null, but we're already taking that into account here. So we're going to get those sequences here as well. Now I've collapsed my prefix and my suffix, so you can really just see this boundary condition for each user. If I click on the user, I'm going to see that sequence, and I can open up those collapsed events, and I can see everything that happens in the prefix or everything that happens in the suffix for a given user. Great, so we've limited ourselves to events that are before the experiment that we know exists in the data. Now I'm going to sessionize like we have been. I'm going to use Copilot to do that. Copilot picks, you have to hit tab to keep the suggestion. Copilot by default chooses 30 minutes. I'm going to change that to an hour because that's what we've been working with. And then I'm going to use last touch attribution. And so I'm going to look for how people are discovering the videos that they watch and what's driving those watch starts. So I'm going to say make last touch the final page a user sees before watch start. Okay, let's see what Copilot does with that. Okay, match split, last touch. So we've got a tag called last touch. The different pages that are eligible to be the last touch are the home page, the search results page. Well, that's duplicate, so I'm going to get rid of it. The movie page, the Copilot saw the word page and is taking everything that looks like page. But movie page is actually not like it's like the card you go to before you watch it. And favorites page, and then top movies page. Well, that's in the experiment, so I'm actually going to take that out. It won't be in this data, in this window of data that I'm looking at. So this looks good. Home page or search page or first favorites page. That's followed by not home page, search page. I'm going to go favorites page. And that can be repeated 0 or more times with the star, followed by watch start. Now I don't need to replace that. I think it got a little aggressive there. And then I'm going to make this optional because the watch start may or may not happen. And I'm interested in particularly the pages that yield the most watch starts to understand where my challenges are and where my opportunity is. Great. So looks like we found a last touch. We did a match split. So we're looking at every time that a user hits one of those attributable pages and whether or not it gets to a watch start. If I go to plot, I can put the last touch page name on the x-axis, and I can see the volume of events. If I do watch start exists, I can take the mean of that, and that'll give me the conversion rate off that page. I like to sort by y descending. So the favorites page has the best conversion, 33%, 33.7%, followed by the search page, 22.7%, and the home page, 14.6%. We're operating on a sample, so this is based on 5% of data and upscaled to our data set. If I hit query more, we're going to get the exact numbers based on the full data set. But this is what I need to kind of understand what's happening. Basically, homepage doesn't yield a lot of watch starts. Favorites is really good at driving watch starts, and search is so-so. And when we looked at that volume, we saw that quite a bit is coming from search and the homepage. So we want to do something that's driving people not to just find their favorites that they've already marked or have to search for things to improve this rate. To kind of look at all this data together, I'm going to go to our table. And in the table, I'm going to show those metrics that we just calculated. Now, by default, you're going to get count star in here. But if we want to add the watch value, we need to add it to our sequence. So I'm going to add a value called watch start and then run that query. And now over here, I can take that mean value of watched, and then I can also take the count value of watched. Oops, the sum, that'll be. Now when I look at that, I get, I'll add that count star back as well. I'm just going to change the order of this so it makes sense. So I'm going to go from count star to the mean of watched to the sum of watched. And that's kind of a natural flow, right? 18.7 million attributable pages goes through a 20% haircut and results in 3.62 million watches. Now I can group that by that last touch tag that I created. And now I'm going to see that for each of the pages. We kind of saw this in the plot, but this allows me to get it all in one place. So the home page 8.42, search slightly less 7.2, favorites page very small 1.6, but a higher conversion, and then yields this many watches. Now there are some sequences without matches. These are people that never got to the home page, search page, or favorites page. They just signed up and bailed. I'm going to go over to opportunity sizing. This is a spreadsheet I made that basically captures that data you just saw. The home page, the search page, and the favorites page, the number of times they were visited, the conversion to watch, and the number of watches they yielded. And this is where I'm going to do some opportunity sizing. So I'm going to think about a new page that I could create, a new way to discover movies. And I'm going to think about it as taking about 50% of traffic from search. Let's say that's my goal. Now, that's a big goal, right? We need to look at the search results. We need to understand what people are searching for, find kind of the most searched for items, and then pull those out so people don't need to search for them. And then we hope that that drives 30% conversion off of that experience into a watch. And so what this opportunity sizing does is basically say, well, let's imagine the number of visits is exactly the same, 0.0% change. And that just instead of search, people are finding what they need already in this favorites experience. And because that favorites is a higher conversion rate than search, maybe because people aren't failing or retyping things or having trouble, we're going to have more watches overall. So we're forecasting a 9% increase in total watches based on adding this page, based on the numbers we've seen. Now, we know that we already conducted that experiment, so I'm going to actually shift our analysis now to be that experiment. So first I'm going to hide this. Now I'm going to paste in our experiment analysis code. So this basically looks for events that are the event experiment that tells us the experiment started, the specific experiment, the top movies. We're going to set the variant for the user, whether they're treatment or control. We're going to limit ourselves to users in the experiment, and we're going to replace all the events before the experiment with null. Now on my attribution, I need to add back that top movies page I so quickly got rid of, because now that's an option for attribution. Okay, so I'm going to run that query, and now we're going to be looking at basically the results after the experiment. So top movie page appears here. The conversion to watch is 66%, so a lot higher than we guessed. And we're going to look at the full data in this spreadsheet. So I put the results over here. I didn't want you to see them, so I hid them. Basically, for the control group, which mimics what we would expect in before the experiment, same. Conversion to watch is 18% blended. And so we got 630,000 watches in the control group. So very much mimics what we saw in our data. Now, on the treatment side, we saw a small drop in home, which we didn't anticipate, a huge drop in search. So instead of the 50% we set a goal for, we got a 60% drop. and then a small drop in favorites. So this was on par with what we anticipated. But the real change was down here. So the conversion to watch that we set a goal for was 30%, but in reality was 67.2%. And then we saw that kind of drop in all of the different types of visits. So just a much more efficient user experience now, where there's fewer discovery pages that someone has to visit in order to achieve a greater number of watches than we saw. And so net, we got a 26.36% increase in number of watches. We said we had a goal of 9%. And the blended conversion to watch rate was up 44.5% instead of the 9% we anticipated. So I hope this was helpful. We basically looked at our key metric, or our key experience that we're trying to drive, which is watch start. We used the plot to understand the last touch attribution and the efficiency of each of those pages. We put that into the table so we could see all that data together. Then we used a spreadsheet to create a future scenario that we anticipated, and then we conducted an experiment and we saw the reality of that. I hope all your experiments are as successful as this one and beat all of your estimates by a significant margin. I hope that's helpful. Thank you.